welcome to Labor Talks. Today's special guest is Beaton. Kate serves as the Western organizer for the Wisconsin Conservation Voters, and she's also on Eau Claire City Council. Welcome to Labor Talks, Kate.
Thank you for having me.
For our viewers, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I am, like you said, on the Eau Claire City Council. I was elected in 2016 and re-elected this last year in 2019. I am also the Western organizer for Wisconsin Conservation Voters. I've been in Eau Claire for almost a decade now, graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and have been fighting to, invest in this community ever since. So,
where are you from originally?
I am from all across Wisconsin, so I had a family that moved around a lot, and so I went to high school in Stevens Point, was born in Sheboygan, so kind of all across the state.
I graduated UWSP, so.
Okay, smash.
Yeah. The Wisconsin Conservation Voters, I think a lot of people have misconceptions about who they really are. Mm-hmm. So tell us about who they are.
Yeah, so Wisconsin Conservation Voters is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We work on issues affecting our natural environment, our natural resources, and policies that impact that. And so we work on mostly state, but also local policies that impact the contamination of our drinking water for the most part. And recently we've gotten into policies related to clean energy and climate change as well. And so my job as the Western organizer is to work with our members all across Western Wisconsin to engage people in the democratic process of creating policy that are going to protect this legacy of Wisconsin's of a natural, clean environment. We also work on elections too. So our theory is that in order to pass good policies that protect our environment, we need to elect people who are going to be supportive and champions of those policies. That means Democrats and Republicans. We certainly can't do it with one party, and so we work with Democrats and Republicans candidates and legislators in the legislature to get that done.
Educate them.
Yeah.
What types of policies is the Wisconsin Conservation Voters working on right now?
Yeah, we are working on, our biggest issue right now is clean drinking water. So when it comes to clean drinking water, we're seeing issues of contaminated groundwater from nitrates from manure spreading. We're seeing issues of lead in the urban areas from lead piping in our drinking water. We have a new issue of PFAS, which is a kind of a newer concern. It's a man-made chemical that is found in firefighting foam that doesn't break down in the environment. So once it's in our water, it has to be taken out by humans. It's put in by humans, it has to be taken out by humans. It's not something that's naturally remediated. And it's something that causes cancer and a lot of other health concerns. And so we're seeing kind of this growing list of water concerns that are affecting people's health in Wisconsin, and particularly our children disproportionately. And so Wisconsin Conservation Voters is working on state policies to prevent the spread of that all of those contamination. And allocate money to remediate that, improve systems so that people know when their water is being contaminated so that they can take the appropriate steps to protect themselves and their families. We, for the last year, have been working within the Assembly Speaker's Water Quality Task Force that was created last year, and has been working on policies to address water concerns. It was a bipartisan task force, and the legislature had been voting on some of those policies actually this past week and today. And so,
well, that's good to hear.
Very relevant right now. To be honest, there are some really good policies in that came out of that task force, and some policies that could have been better. And so, of course, our work continues, and we'll continue to work on policies moving forward in future legislative sessions that will be protecting Wisconsinites.
I lived in Fond du Lac for 8 years, and our problem there was that the wells were contaminated by a little bug called an earwig. They had to switched legislation so that people had to have put these new locks on the tops of their wells, so they couldn't get up and into the wells. And then I moved to St. Croix County, where we've got Emerald Dairy, which is contaminating the waters, and we've got the phosphorus from Dunn County over where the waters, the lakes and rivers and stuff are green in the summertime from runoff.
Yeah, and our theory is that in 2020 in Wisconsin and the United States, it's completely unacceptable that there are people in our state that don't have access to clean drinking water. There are people either because they're living in such a rural part of Wisconsin that they have to drive half an hour to get clean water. There are people who are that don't have the kind of money to drill a new well or move to a new home, and it's just unacceptable that our health is being put at risk
Because of it.
Because of policies that could be changed if we had the political will to do that. And so
And sometimes it's just the littlest thing, like like that locking cap, so they couldn't get up and in. Because people were getting sick because the wells were contaminated.
Yeah, exactly. And so water is one big part of what we work on as an organization. We were happy to see the governor declare the year of clean drinking water. And so we also have been happy that there's been some progress on the clean energy movement in Wisconsin. We see that the governor created a clean energy task force at the administrative level. But really the most opportunity we see for clean energy is at the local level. We've been working with municipalities, city councils, county boards, and school boards to set aggressive clean energy goals to forward their operations of their organizations as a municipality, but also private citizens to using clean energy. There's a lot of will to do that on the local level. Republican and Democratic voters understand that clean energy, that our future is with clean energy
rather than coal.
Yeah, and so they're nonpartisan. City council members or county board supervisors are heeding that call, and we've seen progress in the city of Eau Claire and the county of Eau Claire school board, as well as communities across the state doing that.
Well, I know the announcement was last week that Darien Power was going to be closing down their coal plant.
I hadn't heard that.
So that's and yes, it's sad that jobs are going to be displaced. Hopefully they'll be able to find jobs for them within the power industry, but that's just one of the few coal plants that was still working. So, where do we have the biggest opportunities to forward the clean energy movement in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I think now our biggest opportunity is at the local level. Like I said, people, the average person understands that our future is in clean energy. It has to be. I think broadly people understand that our climate is changing, that our summers are different and our winters are different, and they're understanding that clean energy is a better financial decision, right? And so we're seeing that local governments are taking the steps to decide, not to keep waiting for the state and federal government to do something about forwarding that clean energy movement, and taking their steps themselves. And so, like I said, we on the Eau Claire City Council, we made a commitment to 100% clean energy by 2050 in a resolution, and we're actually next week going to be approving the plan to help us get there. It's like 100 pages or something like that. Packed full of policies that will help us cut our carbon emissions and also invest in clean energy sources. And so communities like Green Bay and La Crosse and Madison, smaller communities like Menominee and Baraboo are all doing the same thing. And so if we can collectively be doing our little actions in our community, we can really do a lot. We have a lot of opportunity, even if that political will isn't quite there yet on the state and the federal level.
And then the next thing is to send it over to the ones who don't have it yet, so that they have maybe guidelines to go by. So I have to make sure you send it to me, so that I can take it to our village board.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because I know we've been struggling with, and a lot of other towns are too, with the nitrates in the water, and the people tend to think that water that's chlorinated is clean. But there's people out there that are allergic to chlorine and shouldn't have to drink water that's chlorinated or boiled or whatever in order to have clean water.
Exactly.
And I grew up on a dairy farm, so I believe in the dairy industry, but there's ways to that they can help the communities versus hurting them, like Emerald has been doing.
Yeah.
And a little fine, which is a tap on the, that's just, it's not enough. It has to be prohibitive so they don't continue those practices.
Yeah. And I think that, empowering an agriculture economy is not mutually exclusive with protecting our drinking water, right? Like the systems that we're using that allow mega farms to thrive, often farms that are not even from Eau Claire or from Wisconsin or even from the United States. These are the same policies that are allowing our drinking water to be contaminated. And I think that when we start to create policies that allow our small local family farms to thrive, we'll also see our drinking water and our environment be protected as well.
And our state will become the dairy state again.
Yeah.
That would be nice. How can the clean energy movement support workers in Wisconsin and boost our economy?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, there's a lot of financial benefits and financial incentives to moving towards clean energy for the consumer, right? If I put solar panels on my house, the return on investment is a lot better than it used to be, and you can really start to see money savings in that. But I think similarly, we can see the economy improve in the clean energy movement for workers. When we start to think about and talk about closing those coal plants that you said, it can be a little scary, especially for workers that really rely on those jobs. But the clean energy job market is growing at faster rates than the dirty energy job market, right? And those jobs are paying better than other dirty energy sector jobs, right? And so I think that if we collectively decide to take that leap, and also the advocates in the clean energy like myself, if we commit to making sure that we're including workers and labor in the conversations of how we progress towards the clean energy future, we'll see workers come out ahead as well. I think that we also, in talking about farmers, the clean energy movement benefits farmers greatly as well. I saw a statistic that said that farmers can make 3 to 4 times more per acre with clean energy than on cropland. And of course, we wouldn't want all of our cropland to go to clean energy, but in an economic environment where farmers are having a hard time surviving as it is, if we can, develop clean energy on farmland, it can be a saving grace for farmers as well.
Right, instead of them turning around and renting their land out to crop farmers, who then rely on the U.S. government to get them good trade deals, like for soybeans, things like that. They can look at, we recently interviewed the gentleman from the Eau Claire, Wisconsin Farmers Union, and we talked about wind farms, solar farms, things like that, which is clean energy, and it can be used here versus having to be worried about the trade deals with China in order to be able to ship our soybeans.
Yes, exactly.
So it'd be nice to see certain parts of Wisconsin obviously are better for, some are better for solar if there's not as many trees around, and the wind as well. So, okay. And do you see the WCV see any mining threats here in Wisconsin with all the things that Walker pushed?
Yeah, so mining is an issue that that Wisconsin Conservation Voters had been working on pretty aggressively a couple of years ago. Walker and the legislature actually passed a bill that repealed the Prove It First law for sulfide mining, which is the most toxic industry in the world, in America, certainly. Industry-wide, there's 0 examples where a sulfide mine has not polluted the water. So in every single situation, a sulfide mine pollutes the water around it and puts the people living in that area at risk. And the Prove It First law basically said that if a mine wants to operate in Wisconsin, then they have to prove in the United States or in Canada that they've been able to operate responsibly and safely without polluting the water. And because industry-wide there's no examples of that, there was no sulfide mining that had happened here in Wisconsin for 20 years. That Prove It First law was passed in the late 90s. Scott Walker voted in support of it in the 90s, and it was signed into law by Republican Governor Tommy Thompson. But I think it was in 2017 that law was repealed, and unfortunately, Wisconsin is open for business again to sulfide mines, and we're seeing sulfide mine sites in the central part of the state and the northeastern part of the state kind of popping up. And so this is a kind of another emerging water issue that Wisconsin is going to be dealing with, certainly it's going to be a new legacy of ours, right? And so,
is there anything in the works to try to repeal it again, put it back in place?
Not currently. Our legislature, the Wisconsin legislature, is still not friendly to conservation, unfortunately, and so that's why we, as an organization, work so hard to be electing conservation leaders up and down the ticket. So we'll be working on state assembly and state senate races this coming fall to hopefully protect conservation leaders in the legislature and flip some seats too.
And did you guys help put any kind of safeguards in place with the frac sand mining from polluting our water?
So I've been with the organization for 3 years, and we haven't done too much with frac sand mining. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of opportunities right now in legislation. I will say that the frac sand mine industry has quieted a little bit in recent years in western Wisconsin, and so certainly not by that wasn't a gift from our government. It was just how the industry sort of progressed. And so it's good for us that it's slowed down and they're not operating as readily, but it's not something that our organization has worked on.
Well, and in any of these mines, like the iron mine up north, and they're usually very pristine areas. Mm-hmm. And so they're stripping the environment, they're taking away the habitats for animals and other life, wildlife and things like that, and then polluting the water.
Yeah, they're the most precious parts of our state, right? There were our family cabins that have been in our families for 100 years. These places are where we take our children to play and create memories, right? It's like, why would we want to destroy that? And once we do, it's something that we'll never get back.
Can you tell us a bit about the youth climate activists?
Yeah, so I'm 28, and I still consider myself a youth.
I would too.
But I've been a climate activist since I was in high school. But I think the climate movement has been reinvigorated by recent youth climate activists. There are activists like Greta Thunberg in Europe who have really re-globalized the climate movement and have given new hope to this call for a clean energy future. Greta, I would say, is probably like the most prominent youth climate activist, and she's for over a year now. She's been striking on Friday from her school under the premise that why would she go to classes and study for a future that doesn't exist? And for me, that's really striking. I'm not as young as Greta, but I can definitely relate to that. And I think a lot of young people, people my age and younger, can really relate to the fact that our future is uncertain, and that it's up to us now as like the newest leaders of our world to be fighting for change. And I think that's been really compelling to our policy leaders.
Well, and I think that one of the things that I took away from Greta is she's not afraid of Donald Trump or any other naysayer politicians. Mm-hmm. We need to remind the legislators, politicians, that they work for us. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do your job right, we can replace you. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't been that way, I swear, for the last 10, 20 years. Yeah. It's more, you get us there, and then we're going to do whatever we want to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that Greta really inspired a lot of young people to do that. And we have youth climate activists here in Eau Claire that are fighting for local policy change and state policy change. Wisconsin Conservation Voters actually had a lobby day down in Madison that we were talking to our state senators and our state assembly people about policy changes, and we had actually 4 Memorial High School students join us for lobby day. They were also organizers of the climate strike that happened in September. And so, these are people who may not even be able to vote yet, and they're already lobbying their legislators and leading, hundreds of people to City Hall to demand climate action, right?
But by the time they are old enough to vote,
Yeah.
they'll know the issues, what's important,
Yeah.
and make a stand, which is
Yeah.
not been happening. So
Yeah.
it's good to see.
Yeah, I'm getting chills even just talking about them. It's inspiring, and I think that we have entered a new era for the climate movement because of these youth
Younger
climate
people.
activists. So,
And how does someone join the WCV or become a volunteer?
yeah, so Wisconsin Conservation Voters is powered by members. We're a membership organization. We are funded by our members, and if somebody is interested in supporting that work with a membership, they can find membership information on our website at conservationvoters.org. We do yearly memberships or monthly memberships as well. Folks can reach out to me directly. I live and work in Eau Claire. My office is like a few blocks from here. And so I would be happy to talk about the opportunities that people have in becoming a member. We have lots of volunteering opportunities as well. So we are, just as we're working to elect folks on the state assembly and state senate level, we're also, Wisconsin Conservation Voters will be rolling out endorsements for local candidates here in Eau Claire as well. And so we have opportunities to help those candidates win. We need, just at the state level, we need folks to be fighting for conservation on the local level too. And so,
And they tend to move up too, so we want to make sure
Yep.
they know what they're doing first. Do you have corporations that are members as well, or just individuals?
We have individuals that are members, and we have grants from foundations as well. So we have kind of a mixture, a whole portfolio of funding sources, but no corporations as far as I know. Yeah.
And why do you feel it's so important for our legislators to recognize global warming?
Yeah, just as I sort of said before, the reality that our future is uncertain is becoming ever more salient, right? For people, especially young people, the fact that climate change is real is becoming more and more obvious to us. And I think that when we elect legislators, we're putting them in positions to protect our future, to create a better future for us and our children. And I think recognizing climate change is showing respect to your constituents. Recognizing climate change is recognizing that we have a responsibility to make sure that we can have a safe and prosperous future, just as our previous generations have done, right? And so we have little time. We don't have a lot of time to address climate change, and so I think the most important reason why legislators need to recognize climate change is that the time to act on is now. The International Panel on Climate Change has said that we have about 10 years to change course before irreversible effects of climate change, and so
what are some really good sources of information where someone can go to get talking points, so that if they're talking to someone who's anti-climate change or global warming, where they can go to get information to have that conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get it a lot. I think the number one talking point that a person needs is their own personal stories of where they recognize climate change in their own lives. There's a lot of data on like what is happening in the Arctic and with the polar bears that might be really compelling to us, but for somebody who doesn't believe that climate change is real, it's not convincing. What's going to be convincing is, somebody who says, I've owned my home for 30 years and have never had issues with flooding, but in the last decade, I've spent, tens of thousands of dollars to repair flooding damage because our climate is changing. Like, that's what it looks like in Wisconsin. Maybe it's I have 10 new friends who got Lyme's disease from tick-borne diseases, right? And that's an effect of climate change. Maybe it's I've been a skier my whole life and can't ski anymore because the ski season is shortening because
Because of lack of snow.
Exactly.
Snowmobile industry, a lot of the other types.
Exactly. And so those stories that connect to our personal lives and us emotionally is how we connect with people who aren't quite convinced. If you are looking for hard data, Wisconsin Conservation Voters has that on our website at conservationvoters.org. Other organizations that are working on climate-related issues are the Sierra Club, 350.org, organizations like that. And so I would definitely recommend looking into these like nonprofit organizations whose number one goal is to get out information and make change, not make a profit, but
Right.
To change our communities for the better.
And working on, like For Ocean, which is the one that's helping clean up the ocean and recycling the materials they're taking out of the ocean, which is really great, rather than polluting. And a lot of people don't think, okay, they might say, well, I see a lot more bear now than I ever did. That's an effect of climate. The brown recluse spiders. This is not the environment for a brown recluse spider, but you've got a lot more of them up here. And I've talked to a lot of other people about the hibernation season for the bears and the other animals that hibernate has gotten so much shorter because of climate change. So now they're out looking for food.
Yep.
A lot earlier.
Exactly.
And out west is even worse because of the fires and the mudslides and the droughts and everything like that. But there's so many people that don't understand that. And then they're like, oh, we got more coyotes and wolves. They're following the food, which follows everything else. So and for them to be able to have places to go and tie these all back in so they can talk to someone about it, instead of someone saying, oh, climate is just a cyclical thing. It's always, there's going to be colder seasons, there's going to be warmer seasons, and they don't believe global warming really exists.
Yeah, and for me, I don't pretend to understand the science. I listen to 99% of scientists on this earth that say this is real. We're in danger. We need to do something different. And so it's not coming from me, but coming from the experts of our earth. And I think that is a compelling call to action. And I think that the littlest things that we can do make a huge difference collectively. And so anybody listening, I would, if you're feeling compelled, I would say look into your life and what small change that you can make.
What they can do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, oh, I'm just one person. What can I do? One person. Even if they just start recycling, makes a huge difference.
Yeah, exactly.
So, is there anything else, Kate, that you would like to add that we haven't gone over?
I think that that's it. We covered a lot of good stuff. I guess I would make that call one more time for folks who are listening. We make change by acting together. If it's not environmental issues or climate issues, there are incredibly important issues that are being fought for in this community right now by people who need your help. And so definitely look for ways that you can plug in.
Does the WCV have monthly meetings?
We don't have monthly meetings in Eau Claire, but like I said, I live and work here. I'm happy to get coffee with anybody, and we do have pretty regular volunteer opportunities that come up. So.
And are those then posted on your website or someplace where they can find them?
Yeah, we send emails out to our members about that, and so anybody who kind of signs up with their email address would get notice of that.
Good. So some way that they can, if they want to volunteer and become a member, they know where to go and what kinds of things they will be doing.
Yes, exactly.
To keep them active.
Yeah.
All right. And we certainly appreciate a person with your background being on the city council then as well, because then you can tie all these things back in. And if we can, like you said, if we can go from Eau Claire to some of the other smaller areas and the bigger areas to get them to go green, or to get them to go at least do something. So that we can, we've been battling with water treatment facilities over in our area because of the waterways and where did they go to. And a lot of people don't know that's, if they live in a village, they just think, well, my water and stuff is part of what I get. They don't think about what has to be done for them to keep that clean water. And you don't want to pollute the waterways. Like I live where the Kinnickinnick is and a lot of the Eau Plaine and the O'Galley and all the other things over there. So we gotta make sure people know what it takes to get them their clean water.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Well, that's our program for today. My thanks to our viewing audience and to Kate for making today's program possible. My thanks also to our folks that work behind our cameras from Valley Media Works. And they not only make the show possible, but they give us an outlet for our family worker voices. A final note, Labor Talks is on channel 993 twice weekly. And you can also use your favorite search engines with keywords Labor Talks and CBC TV and find us on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in today.